Welcome back. Today we are diving into a book called The Coaching Habit, and the big idea here is pretty simple, but it's a game changer. The secret to being a great leader isn't about having all the answers, it's actually about asking a few really good questions.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the biggest thing holding most leaders back, our reflex to just give advice all the time. Then we'll get practical and look at a super simple way to build better habits. And finally, the best part, we're going to learn 3 powerful yet incredibly simple questions that can totally transform how you lead. You know, as managers, we kind of think our job is to provide solutions, right? But this constant urge to jump in and give advice, what the author calls the advice monster, is actually working against us. It feels helpful, sure, but a lot of the time, it's really more about us wanting to feel smart and in control than it is about actually helping the other person grow.
And here's the honest truth. Our advice is usually not as great as we think it is. We almost never have the full picture. And even when the advice is genuinely good, it creates this dependency. It stops people from figuring things out on their own. So you might solve one problem right now, but you're accidentally building a weaker, less capable team for the long haul.
This whole advice-giving thing traps us in what the book calls 3 vicious circles. First up is overdependence. Your team starts needing you for everything, and you become the bottleneck. And that leads right into the second circle. You get totally overwhelmed. You're doing their work and your work. And that leads to the third problem. You get disconnected from the important, strategic, great work that you're supposed to be doing, all because you're busy putting out everyone else's small fires.
So this is really the key takeaway. If we want to escape these cycles, just trying to be better isn't going to cut it. We need an actual system, a reliable way to change our behavior.
And the book gives us this fantastic, super simple formula. First, you pinpoint your trigger. You know, like when someone on my team says, "I've run into a problem." Next, you define your old, unhelpful habit, instead of immediately telling them what to do. And finally, you decide on your new micro-habit. I will just ask a question. That's it.
And this is absolutely brilliant. The key is that the new habit has to be a micro-habit. It needs to be so quick, so easy, literally less than a minute, that your brain doesn't even have a chance to resist. And asking one simple question? Well, that's a perfect example of a tiny action that has a massive impact. Okay, let's get into our first tool. So many coaching opportunities just fizzle out because we don't know how to begin. This first question is designed to just slice right through all that awkwardness.
You just ask, what's on your mind? Think of it like the Goldilocks of questions. It's open enough that it invites people to share what's actually important to them, but it's also focused enough that you don't waste time with small talk. It gets right to the good stuff.
Now, a question like this can lead to 2 different kinds of coaching. There's performance coaching, which is all about fixing the immediate problem, putting out the fire. But the real goal, the real magic, is development coaching. That's where you're not just solving the problem, you're helping the person grow so that next time they can handle the fire all by themselves. That's the real win.
And once they've told you what's on their mind, you can help them focus a bit more with something called the 3P model. You can ask them, is this really about the project itself, the people you're working with, or a personal pattern of behavior that keeps showing up? It's a great way to help them clarify what the core issue really is.
All right, next up we have a question that is so powerful. The author actually calls it the best coaching question in the world. Seriously, it's like a tool for creating wisdom and new ideas out of thin air. It's just 3 little words. And what else? The book calls this the awe question, AWE. And it's so powerful because it forces everyone to just pause. It communicates, hey, I'm really listening and I bet there's more to this. It's a simple, genuine invitation to dig a little deeper.
And the great thing is, you can ask it a few times to really get below the surface. Then, when you start to feel the conversation has explored enough, you can shift it slightly by asking, is there anything else? That small change in wording kind of signals that you're getting ready to wrap up that part of the conversation, while still giving them one last chance to add something. So why does this simple question work so well? Well, it does 3 really important things. First, it pushes the other person to generate more options. And let's be honest, the first idea is almost never the best one. Second, it's a fantastic way to keep your own advice monster quiet. And third, it buys you some time. It gives you a second to actually think and process what's going on.
Get this. One study found that when you make a simple yes or no decision, it fails more than 50% of the time. But just by adding one more option to consider, that failure rate gets cut almost in half. And what else is probably the fastest way on Earth to find that crucial third option?
Okay, let's look at our final question. This one is designed to tackle a massive problem we see everywhere. People working really hard on the wrong thing.
This question is all about slowing down that rush to just do something. The word real in there is key. It pushes them to look past the surface level stuff. And the phrase, for you, makes it personal. It encourages them to take ownership of their piece of the puzzle.
It's amazing for cutting through what the book calls foggy fires. Like when someone comes to you and just dumps a dozen different problems on your desk all at once. This question forces them to stop and think, okay, out of all this noise, what's the one thing that really matters most?
And it also stops us from coaching the ghost. We've all done this, where we spend the whole conversation complaining about someone who isn't even in the room. This question brings the focus right back to the person you're talking to and what they can actually do, what's in their control instead of just venting.
So when you put all this together, what's the big idea? Well, building a coaching habit isn't about becoming some kind of office therapist or cramming even more meetings onto your calendar.
It's really just about a small shift in your default setting. It's about deciding to be a little more curious and a little less of an expert who has all the answers. These 3 questions, they're your new toolkit. You don't have to be perfect. Just pick one, try it, and see what happens.
By saying less and asking more, you'll find that you can actually work less hard but have a much bigger impact. So the only real question left is, which new habit are you gonna start with?